The title of today's stream, if I updated it correctly, is How My Guild is Surviving Shadowlands dash Coffee with Soul. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about for a little bit. It's funny, someone mentioned in a Discord comment just a little bit ago that, hey, one of the first videos that I watched was how you and your guild were surviving, back during Legion and stuff. To which some people look back at Legion and be like, oh man, that was such a great expansion. There was so much going on. It was so fun. And then BFA and Shadowlands happened. Rubble, rubble, rubble. Today I wanted to talk about my guild and how I run it and how it still manages to exist. This year it'll be 15 years. Holy moly. My guild started November something or other, 20 something, 2007. So this was a good bit into the Burning Crusade expansion. It was a while into it, and it was put together out of, for those who don't know the very short story about it. It was founded from mutiny. We left someone else's guild, and we just made another one. And they're like, hey, so you want to join? I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Time passed. Eventually, so it was someone else who ran this guild. Eventually, they started to kind of fall off. They started to play less. I started to take over more because I was like raid leading. I didn't even realize I was raid leading until I was raid leading. And then I was tanking. And, because there was a time where I didn't tank as a paladin. But then I've effectively been running it for pretty much the whole time. And through everything. Through most things, through many things, wow. And I guess I wanted to focus on Shadowlands and maybe a little bit of BFA too, because it's been a rocky ride for a lot of folks. And it's crazy because some people keep talking about guilds as if they're two things. One, it's like this monolith, this thing to strive for. It's like, oh man, it'd be so great to have like a guild full of friends and comrades and we can get stuff done together. Whereas some folks are like, oh, guilds are the worst. They're like a super clique. It's like freaking high school again. You got to deal with these like, the politics and blah, blah, blah. And it's like terrible. I'd rather just pug and so on and so forth. But there's still a lot of people that value being part of or being in a guild, and so that's what I'm going to end up, I guess, talking about. How did we get through? This is obviously going to be very unorganized, and I'm just going to throw this up as a video. I apologize. I don't even think I'll have a navigation thing, so please bear with me. When Shadowlands first started, the guild was very populated. There was a ton of people who were excited to like get into like the brand new thing that Shadowlands was offering. It came to a point when we first started raiding, there were too many people. We had over 30 people who wanted to get in on the goodness, and so I was put into the very strange position of having to choose who it is I'm bringing and who it is that I'm not, and it's something that I haven't experienced in a while. And it was very distressing, to be honest. It wasn't long, of course, until the typical, hey, I tried this out, I've had my jollies, or it sucks, whatever. And, it's the common drop-off. And so people started to dip out. The 30 people became 20, the 20 became 12, and then it just kind of goes up and down from there. It's been like that throughout the entire time. So how did I survive it, though? Part of it is, part of surviving Shadowlands is having survived everything else, having gone through what a guild would go through after like 14, 15 or so years. It's partially the way that it was run, partially the people that were there. And keep in mind that my guild, Prisoners of Warcraft, it started that long ago. To this day, there's only one person who is still around. Well, apart from me, because there's only one person who's still around, and he only came back recently. He only came back about like a year or so ago. His name's Carl. I'm just gonna name him Carl because that's what we call him in game as well. So his name's Carl as far as we're concerned. And he was actually the person whose guild that we had left when we first put Prisoners of Warcraft together. It was kind of funny like that. And yet here he is, he's showing up and doing his thing. But, to talk about how we survived is to also, again, talk about how we survived Shadowlands is to also talk about how we just survived overall. And I've talked about this. I do this video like about once a year. How are we still around? Why are we still going? These might be tips for a guild, for a person who wants to lead a clan or a guild, someone who wants to put things together. And this isn't, maybe these aren't tips. Maybe this is just coincidentally what I did, and it happened to work out. So take things as you will. Maybe some of this knowledge is useful. Maybe some of it isn't so much. Part of what helped me survive, what I think worked, was that I ran this guild like a dictator. I was the one-man show in when it comes to decision making, the direction, what kind of content do we want to do, the schedule, all that stuff. It's very important to listen to the people around you because they're your comrades, they're your team. These are the people you're going to do dungeons and raids, and you're going to talk with these people when those dungeons and raids are done. So it is important to listen. But I think what helped me was to ultimately, the decision is going to be based on me. It's going to be based on what I feel like I want to do, because I wouldn't want to alienate myself out of not wanting to run or be part of this guild, because then I wouldn't have the guild anymore. Obviously, so look out for number one, of course. And when it comes to your decisions, ultimately it's going to be up to you. In a lot of ways, you as a guild leader will end up adapting a little bit to the needs of your team. But it kind of goes both ways too. Otherwise, like I said, you're not going to have a good time. You won't have fun. And then you'll quit because you'll feel disconnected from that. It won't feel like you own it anymore. And this guild is something that everyone has like a bit of partial ownership over, because I want to at least say that I value everyone on the team. But when it comes to decision making, maybe I value myself a little bit more. Something very important. I think I should probably have let off with this too. The most important thing for keeping a guild going, and this is, my guild raids primarily. We raid log a lot, but we raid. That's the big thing. And then we do supplementary stuff, like we do like dungeons and stuff, and sometimes we'll do fun things whenever we can manage to. But I haven't given myself the time to plan anything out. When it comes to raids, though, it's like the cardinal rule that you gotta have that schedule, and you pretty much can't change it. I changed my schedule like maybe once. Our schedule kind of shifted a little bit. Like we used to start raids at like 5 in the afternoon or something like that, my time. And then it kind of moved up slowly towards like 7 o'clock or so. I don't know exactly when that happened, but it happened, and it's been like that ever since. And that's critically important, because you got to remember, as you look at yourself as a guild leader, you have your needs, you have your schedule, you have your time, but the people that you're working with, they are people too, who also have their schedules, their times, and things like that. And having a consistent schedule allows both you and your team to adapt to that, to make the schedule, to make things work. So I it's like I want to say that over and over again, but I'd be kind of like running in circles. But you got to have that schedule, and you got to keep it up, and the show has to go on. I think I've been lucky that because of the way that WoW is designed, it's easy enough for me to say, "Hey, everyone, just show up, and we'll figure it out." So show up at raid time. Most everyone shows up late. Show up at raid time, and we'll be okay. You know, I will figure out the healing and the DPS and stuff. I will talk with folks, and you got to be really involved with both setting the schedule and also making sure that, you know, the people that you do have, it's going to be as reasonable enough of a team that you can go on. One of the great things about WoW these days, ever since late Mists of Pandaria, Warlords, and going forward, is the whole flexible raiding schedule. So as you probably know, I don't do mythic raids. We only go as far as heroic. And the biggest reason why is because I'm not good at mythic. The other big reason why is because mythic has a fixed sort of roster, whereas all the other difficulties have a flexible sort of thing ever since, like I said, late mob, early warlords. And having that, it gives so much power to that ability to schedule something reasonable for people to, you know, show up for. Because having flex rating allows for people to sometimes not show up, to maybe take a break, or to show up a little bit late and not super penalize the team, or to leave early and, again, hopefully not super penalize the team. It does feel, I admit it does feel discouraging whenever someone does show up late or leaves early because of reasons, or I can kind of like read the tone in their voice. They don't feel like it's working out, and so they want to leave. I'm like, oh great, you're looking out for yourself, you know. So I'll never say that, and I try not to think that, but it does hurt a little bit, I have to admit, whenever people dip out early, even with a good reason. I'm like, oh man, come on, dude, we're trying to do progression, man. We're trying to get stuff done. So it can feel a little distressing. But again, having that flexible roster, having that as a feature, it allows for, you know, people to, you know, feel comfortable showing up as much as they can, and that helps with attrition too. Sometimes people leave. Obviously, sometimes, you know, they'll leave for their own reasons because they're moving on to greener pastures. They're looking to do more than just mythic stuff. They want to raid with a stronger team, yada yada yada. Some people have higher aspirations, and this kind of goes into like that whole next thing, is to set expectations for the guild too, and let people know, this is how I run the show. This is what we do. This is how often we show up. And if you want to change things, it's not going to happen fast at all. Some folks, you know, in the past, some folks were like, yeah, dude, I eventually want us to run mythics. And I try to shoot that down really quick. I'm sorry, mythic raids, not mythic dungeons. And I try to shoot that down real quick. Because the kind of team that I've slowly built has that expectation of, okay, we're going to run this sort of difficulty. But as for going any further than that, nah, probably not, because that's going to require a certain level of skill and commitment that not everyone is going to be able to provide. And the one thing that I don't want to do is to exclude people. I think that's helped us get through over the years, and with Shadowlands too, is to try to not be as inclusive as possible. When it comes to different skill levels and preferences. Sometimes that causes friction though, because I end up carrying people. There are some people that we just carry. and they might not know who they are. Maybe they won't admit it. The good ones do admit it. The not so. Some people don't, though. Like me, I'll never admit that my team carries me. Pfft, come on, I run the guild. Sheesh. But because of that, it does create a sort of burden on people who do perform and do, who do work really hard and do gear up and do like their 15s every week so they can get like the nice 270 something or others. And they do try to encourage people in their own way to participate. And it's very important as the guild leader to really try to do that. And that's something that I struggle with a lot because I don't give myself a lot of time. Even as a content creator, I don't have a lot of time to play the game. I'm doing too much work trying to talk about it as opposed to playing the damn thing. But I try. Whenever I show up, I try to perform and I try to do well with folks. And I try to value that team and all that. The other day, we were... someone was like, hey, dude, I want to run a mythic. And I was like, all right, dude, looks like we got people on. Let's go. And so I got some people, and then I realized, oh, I don't have a healer. Snap. So I buzzed one of the healers who were offline, but they were still in Discord. I'm like, hey, dude, come on. I need you to heal. And they're like, fine. So the little bit of wrangling together is important. But the reason why I'm bringing this up was because we couldn't get another DPS. Everyone else was, busy doing their own thing or whatever. And so I was challenged to get a pug. And for those of you who watched some of my earlier content, I have big anxiety issues when it comes to bringing pugs. It's borderline irrational, but it's something that I do struggle with. It's real, and I gotta deal with it. And so some people were like, hey, come on, dude, let's go. Let's, just get a pug, dude. I'm like, fine. And so I did. But it felt awkward for most of the run because like we wiped a number of times. We didn't time this key. We were doing like I think like a 10 Solea's Gambit. It was my first time going in there. And so that anxiety was like even further. My blood pressure was like, oh my God. And the times that we wiped, this pug dude who was performing very well, they were like, hey guys, come on. And I'm like, oh, don't leave. And those are things that I openly, like I said, I struggle with. And that openness, I think it helps, the humanization, I think it helps keep that kind of connective thread among guildmates. We have needs, we have wants. There are things that we like and don't like, and we try to deal with that. Some people don't want to deal with that. And so some people don't like being part of guilds, and that's 100,000% okay. This is how we, get through it, though. This is how we get through this sort of stuff together, because, I know I would rather do that. I would rather, deal with building relationships than dealing with pugs. And like I said, I don't know if that's like a super rational thing, mindset to have, but that's just what I do. Someone in chat here is asking, did I use my IO or their item level to judge them? The pugs, I don't know. I don't remember at the time. But when it comes to my guildmates, the first rule of a guildmate is, can you show up? Because like I said, we're raid centric. And I'll get that question. Like, hey, what do I need to do? Are there requirements that I have? No. Show up. What about my item level? As long as you're, depending on what we're running. If we're on progression, okay, I'll have a different answer. But for the most part, if we're doing farm content, you just got to show up and try to have a good time and just roll with it, because you're gonna eat the floor. We're not gonna do the best job of explaining things and that sort of stuff. I guess I should get to that, like how we run our raids themselves. And this again goes back to setting expectations. So we run semi-blind. I've talked about this a number of times. and lately, because we're doing progression again, people are getting an example of that. Last night we brought down like 3 new bosses on normal difficulty, so it's normal difficulty. But this is us going in without knowing a damn thing. And I remember some folks on the team, they were saying like, you can't blind prog this stuff, dude. And I'm like, oh yeah, / ready check, bra ba bam. We pull like the Lee Huvim person. We pull them 3, 2, 1, boom, bloodlust, oh, blah 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 blah. And then like one person on the team was like, oh my god. I'm like, yeah, damn right. Oh my god, let's go. And so we wiped spectacularly because I was like, oh, the thing spawned. But then like 2 or 3 pulls later, we killed it, and it was a very scuffed kill. And looking back, being on normal mode, like there weren't a lot of mechanics that really warranted like a lot of care, but still did it. and that felt hella good because we sort of figured it out and we powered through it anyway. It wasn't just because we had like super high DPS and we just blew everything up. We have a couple of really good performers, but it's kind of balanced by the people who aren't performing as well. But we got through it, and it was great. It was fantastic. I loved it. I try to stress the value of doing blind progression in the guild as, hey, we're learning this stuff together. It's not just sit down by yourself, read, watch the Hazelnutty guide. It's the cutest guide, by the way. The other ones are very dull by comparison. Watch Hazelnutty Games. She's a great creator. But, it's not that. I don't encourage people to watch their guides. No offense to her or anyone else. But to learn and to die and to pick yourself up and figure it out from there. And for those who do pug ahead or otherwise do know the fights, I encourage them to shut the heck up and not reveal it to anyone who is interested in just kind of like learning as they go, which includes me. So if I hear it in chat, I'll be like, blah 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 blah. I will not listen. I will actively ignore those folks because I want us to be able to play the game together and figure this stuff out together. But it's also important to respect the fact that there are people that are going to look ahead because they don't want to feel like they're holding the team back, or they otherwise are a little bit less patient and don't want to have to wait for the guild run. Because people are going to do their own thing too. I said I'm the guild dictator, but I'm not going to micromanage everyone. But I will help folks out however I can, and a lot of that comes from being able to throw down with gold. So I make decent gold. I'm probably not the wealthiest person in guild right now, but I'm well off enough to finance like all the consumables and like the major needs of the guild. So anything that they need can be done, and given the time of this recording with these new legendary things coming out, I'm gonna help to subsidize the costs. Like I already paid out a lot of gold when we defeated Sylvanas. Like I paid out about 200,000 gold per person, like, as kind of like a, hey, we did it, guys. Here's a lot of gold. and so I'm pretty sure like people will have enough of that. We'll be able to take some of that gold and buy what they need to make a new legendary. But even then, I'll try to subsidize that by paying for like maybe half of it or so when these new legendaries come out next week. And that's me, that's me flexing and trying to make things easier for the guild because we're all playing this together. I will provide this. I will provide this gold. You will provide your heals and your DPS and your tankiness. And I will demand the best that I can get out of you, and I will give you the best that I've got. having that sort of relationship and expressing that has helped to keep people together, I think. Because, like I said, it humanizes us. It reminds us that we're all here for each other. I'm not just barking orders and being like, "All right, serfs to the master," give me the things that I want, and so on and so forth. So it's important to be a cheerleader too, to have as positive of an attitude as you could get away with. If you're on guild and you're like shitting all over the game and be like, "Oh wow, look at this dumb fucking story, lol," and saying that kind of stuff to the people who you're fighting alongside, who are also throwing down that $0 to $15 a month to play this game, it kind of sours that mood, and it makes people feel less. I would argue that it makes people feel a little bit less interested. Now, again, you got to read the room and empathize with folks. If people aren't happy about stuff, then you may not agree, but it's important to at least listen and listen and accept that. And sometimes, as a guild leader, you'll have to kind of think like, maybe they got one foot out of the door already. And if that's so, cool. Sometimes you might need to help them out that door, because otherwise you're gonna have that person like bringing down the raid and bringing down the team, and that's not gonna do it for you. Because while you as the guild leader come first, because you're the glue that keeps things together, you got to keep that house clean too, and you can't. It's important to not have that sort of thing dragging it down. Having good DPS ain't enough. If your if your vibe isn't working out, then we don't want you. Folks aren't going to want you around. Now, if everyone's like that, okay, sure, y'all want to shit on stuff together, okay. Birds of a feather, right? I think that's the I think that's the word. And I'm not exactly saying be blind to everything either. It's important to listen, but if other folks feel like they're being affected by another person's attitude, you got to do something about that. And sometimes I'm slow on that because I am very, very patient with folks. If you don't perform well, I'm patient. If your attitude is kind of like, I've become less patient on that because I've had to learn from that. But at least when it comes to like the gameplay, if you got a good attitude about it, okay. But but when people are underperforming, I think it's important to let them know and not to just let them self-deprecate. Some people might be like, "Oh, it was me, my dumbass, lol." And that's, in a way, it's like, okay, that's cool. They're calling themselves out, but also in a way, it's like they're trying to excuse themselves from outside criticism. That's not okay either. So at times, it'll feel important for you to just talk with that person and be like, "Hey, so you're being kind of a shitter at the moment, and I need you. And what can I do to help? What can we do?" And then listen. Get them talking. Get them to listen. And I struggle with this too because, again, I don't have a lot of time. That's where it's important as a leader, whenever you see an opportunity to leverage or to delegate, it'd be great. It's like, oh, this person says that they're not doing so great because they don't have gear. Meanwhile, this other person said on the side, "Oh yeah, I run keys all the time. I'd be happy to bring guildmates." Dude, get them together. If that connection or if that communication doesn't seem like it's been done yet, get those folks together and try to facilitate something. Step in if you need to. Take time to cultivate that, and it'll pay dividends. Some folks would say that that's too much of a commitment to ask of a person, to ask, who's for someone who's like trying to run a guild or something like that, that's too much to ask. I would say it's not. For me, it hasn't been. For me, it's been worth it, because you're helping this person. Well, one, hey, we're playing games together. Cool, we're doing stuff. We're having an adventure. Hey, but two, it makes them feel valued, because maybe they're getting gear, or maybe they're just getting some experience, or maybe they're just kind of bonding with a fellow human being who feels like they're being cared for. And maybe it's not you, guild leader. Maybe it's you delegating something. And it's also important to, when people do bring up like issues, or when people want to step up and be like, hey, I want to help out with this. Sweet. These days, in the past, I've relied on my co-tanks to do it. To be like, not exactly a co-guild leader, but someone who is not exactly a co-guild leader or a co-confidant or anything like that, but just someone who I know who accepts additional responsibilities and is like otherwise okay with it. Or maybe they're just thrust into the role and they're just like, oh, this is what I do now. And that's kind of what happened with me when I first started in this guild. And all of a sudden, like, I was just like, I want to help. And then all of a sudden, I run the guild. Don't worry, they're not going to run the guild anytime soon, and they're probably thankful for that. But whenever there are those opportunities to share like some of those responsibilities, hey, that's great. But hold on to the reins. Make sure that this is your show. Don't let anyone take control of of that team. Don't let anyone leverage a damn thing, because if you get a hint of not mutinous behavior, that sounds a bit extreme, but if it feels like you're losing control, take whatever steps you need to regain that control. And that doesn't mean micromanaging and coming down on people. It means speaking out and listening and trying to address those needs. And when you find those out, maybe that will mean, hey person, it sounds like you want more than what me or this guild can offer you. You might want to move on. And it's not a good feeling to have, because you might be like, oh, but then they're such a good DPS. Dang it. But sometimes you gotta let those folks go. So I was supposed to talk about how this guild specifically survived Shadowlands. And, we took big hits with the roster. At the start, like I said, we had hella people. And then all of a sudden, like, we were running like really, really short. And somehow we still managed to raid every single week, except for holidays. We take breaks for like Thanksgiving, New Year's, Christmas. That's about it. Sometimes I don't show up. Sometimes I got things to do, and the raid manages to go on. Sometimes, I think, maybe. But I think a lot of what I had said earlier is the reason why we survived Shadowlands. But I guess more than anything, it was the schedule. It really goes back to that. It gives those people things to do those 2 days out of the week. And for some people, being able to play 2 days out of the week, each week, that's worth the $15 a month, because it gives them a chance to connect with people, play video games, talk about their day a little bit, have that somewhat human connection, and remind themselves that they're playing with other people. I picked the bad habit of complaining all the time off a friend when I was in the military. It was just how he communicated, but started to do the same for years until I realized that I was doing it. It's okay to complain, but know when enough is also an important MO. Yeah, it's like some people are like, dude, I gotta get this off my chest, man. Some people need that. They gotta get that sort of cathartic feeling of release out of them. That's cool. 100%. And that's where maybe I won't say it outright, but I'll be like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna listen. But maybe I don't give a shit. But I'm gonna listen, right? Where things go wrong is when, hey, drew off my chest, man. It's the difference between that and I'm gonna rant and I'm gonna drag you down with me. That's something that I personally push back against. And people can react however they like, but if I see it, in guild chat or raid chat or whatever, there's a point where I gotta be like, oh, ready check, gotta hold off on that for a bit and de-escalate. That's I haven't had that problem really during Shadowlands. I think there were like a few moments where they were like specific to, hey, stop dying so fast, you're dying to this, you're dying to this, and some people were like, dude, I'm trying, man, I'm doing my best here, but blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, let's just deep breath, let's go, let's keep going, and we'll figure this out. I personally was working on Heroic Raid the first couple weeks, and the group was looking to get into Mythic soon, but I just had to say, you know what, I'm not having fun currently. I think I need to take a step back because I didn't want to ruin anyone else's fun. Yeah, that's the toughest, Necro. Like, there are folks who force themselves to keep playing, and that ain't good. It's not healthy because that person is forcing themselves to keep playing. They're not having fun, but they're still around. But that energy could easily start spilling over to other folks, especially if that person happens to be the type that wants to run their mouths a bunch too. Something. Yeah, fucking my class. It's D tier on the rankings. Fuck Blizz. Blah blah blah. That sort of stuff. It wears people down, and some people ain't gonna have that. They will cut that shit out quick. They'll stop listening to you and whatever, and it creates this kind of negative feedback loop, and it's not cool. They should have said to quit it, maybe, but then not everyone is that assertive, to be honest. Some people will be like, oh, here they go. Classic Platycus doing their thing. But maybe they're just trying to be nice, or maybe they agree with you to certain extents too, and all that. Thanks for dropping by, Peter. I think he left already, but speaking of guild recruitment, Radar.io has a feature that GMs can fill out to put hover cards with recruitment info on the rankings pages. I'll never use that, Mage Master. You know why? Because certain people use Radar.io. And while it is, it's not like there aren't good people that use Radar.io, but like statistically, I'm gonna get higher if I were to use it, I would get higher performers in there who probably want more than what my guild would offer. So, like I said, we run semi-blind. Is a person who is looking for a guild on Radar.io looking for a guild that runs semi-blind? Maybe. But statistically, probably not. And they probably won't read whatever, my description that makes it clear, hey, this is how we do our thing. And then we're both wasting our time. Something important about running the guild is that sometimes you'll get unpleasantly surprised by someone just up and leaving. And sometimes you can't fill that. Sometimes you'll find that those holes are impossible to fill because those folks are people that you've talked with, you've gotten to know them on a first name, real name basis, You might have broke bread with them. You know, I've met some of these folks in real life at like BlizzCons. We broke bread. Okay, we broke chicken and waffles. You know what I mean? And then they move on for whatever reason, and that sucks because it isn't, but it's not unlike losing a friend. You're losing a comrade. Of course, they're just like they're just a DM away or whatever, and they might be playing something else. They're like, hey, what's up? How's the thing going? Oh, it's going great, dude. And you know, that's it. You know, you can maintain that sort of connection, but at least when it comes to your immediate concern, making sure this guild survives, like I said, it leaves holes that you can't exactly fill, not on your own, because sometimes, and I've been fortunate for this, some people have stepped up, some people have filled those gaps, and it's your responsibility as GM to kind of adapt to that. It's still your show, but a big part of that show is the people that run it, that provide that color and texture, that create this thing, this organization that is uniquely yours. And you got to kind of water that and cultivate it a little bit to make sure that, you know, that these people in some way are acknowledged. Just saying their name helps a little bit too. Small things that remind people that they're more than just the faceless pugs. It sucks when you have to take a step back because you feel like you're ruining the fun for others. It does, because just like a guild leader, you know, people as a member, you got to look out for yourself too. You should be looking out for yourself first. And if you're not having fun, that's what's most important. I don't think you should feel guilty. Maybe I'm contradicting myself somewhere, but I don't think you should feel guilty if that your lack of fun is spilling onto others, because that guilt might keep you in, and that guilt will turn into resentment. You know what I mean? So, you know, yeah, I say don't feel guilty, but it's kind of a good thing that you do, because it means that you care about, you know, the people who you might be fucking over.